Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Influencers Project. I'm your host, Craig Reynolds. With me today is the co-founder of one of the most incredible post-production studios in New York City, Feather Creative. Please welcome Ms. Salma Khalil. Salma, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Craig?
I am doing fantastic. This is a long time coming. I've been asking you to come on for 2 solid years. So I am so grateful that you finally broke down and we're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Fine, I will do
Get
it.
this guy out of my hair.
Yes, that's exactly it. So thank you. I really appreciate this so much. I think what you do and what you've done is so fascinating that I certainly want to know more about all of what you are and what you've done and how you got here. So let's get started. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Alexandria, Egypt, but I lived all over the Middle East. My family kind of had a bunch of crazy circumstances, so we bounced around a lot, and we ended up in Dubai. So that was kind of home base from high school onwards. And then I went to DC for college. I studied journalism at the George Washington University and minored in fine art. And I worked as a school paper there, and that's where I met a lot of my friends in college. But I realized that I felt more comfortable in the art department. Like it was more acceptable to question and to just be anything you wanted to be. I mean, I'm not going to say that it applies to the greater art world at all, but it felt more accepting than the world of journalism. So I fell in love with it. And originally I was taking ceramics classes and ran out of ceramics classes. And so I didn't want to take drawing. I didn't want to take painting. It's like, oh, well, maybe a camera. I don't have to show any real artistic skill in terms of drawing or painting or whatever. So I took photography and fell in love with that and the darkroom and the whole process of just being in the darkroom and printing, and started doing work that was combining ceramics and photography in undergrad. And when the time came, I wanted to get my master's in fine art after that, and applied to Pratt, and that's where I met Sarah, who is
Sarah
how we
Baird,
met.
our good friend. We actually were at Sarah's wedding, and we all got to sit at the same table, which is how Selma and I became friends. So go ahead. There we go.
And I ended up applying to a bunch of schools in New York because when I visited New York for the first time, I was like, this is the place to live. This is the end all be all is here. And moved up here to go get my master's at Pratt. And that's where I met my business partner, Lynn. And there was no way when I was 22 years old in grad school, you would have ever told me that, oh, this woman is going to be your business partner in a few years, and you guys are going to start this company and you're going to have 15 to 17 employees 10 years later.
That is incredible. Well, before we get to that part, let's double back for a second. What was the decision to leave Dubai, which I would think you have plenty of options? Well, maybe you don't. I don't know. I would think as a major city, you have options there. But what was the draw to leave there to come to DC for school?
Well, when I have to go back to a lot of family history, I guess. So my parents left Egypt in the 70s because there wasn't much opportunity for it. There was a fleeing of middle-class educated young people at the time in the 60s and 70s, post-revolution in the 1950s, because there wasn't really opportunity for that. And so many of the people my father's age kind of left for other opportunities elsewhere, whether they came to the West, or at least I'm not going to generalize about the whole country, but his peer group and his family, so cousins, uncles, all that, left to study in the West or work in the Middle East or just elsewhere for better opportunities. And Kuwait at the time was the Dubai of the 70s, right? They just found oil and it was kind of becoming a place to go for opportunity. And that's where my parents ended up.
Okay.
And we lived there till the Gulf War, and we had to evacuate. We went back to Egypt for a year. My dad found a job in Saudi Arabia. We lived there for 5 years, and then he decided he didn't want to really work for anybody, and wanted to start his own practice. And Dubai was kind of trying to draw entrepreneurs at the time in the 90s. So he moved to Dubai to start his own practice. And we followed a year later, and that kind of just became where he lived. So the whole idea was my parents you put your kids in foreign language schools, right? When you're trying to give them better opportunities elsewhere. Especially my parents had 3 daughters, so they wanted them to go west and not be in the Middle East, where it's harder as a woman to find work. I don't know if I want to say this on radio, but
no, this is great, because this is part of your experience. So by all means, please. Yeah. I love this. This is awesome, because I think a lot of times we hear about it, secondhand in the news, but not always hearing it direct.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I couldn't have experience, but couldn't have opportunities there if I wanted them. It's just my parents had this mindset and put me in American school since day one, kindergarten. So I sound like this.
Right.
Because I've barely even, I learned to speak Arabic just because it was around, not because I took any classes in Arabic, so I can read and write, but it's very like at an elementary level, so 2nd, 3rd grade level. And I can speak fluently because that's just the language around me. So I I grew up in this American microcosm, right, in the middle of the Middle East. It's kind of between two cultures and two identities. And that's when I was in grad school and when I was writing as in journalism, that was a big motivator for me, is kind of finding my identity, because I never felt like I was part of something. Like I was Arab, but too Western enough, but Western and not American officially. So it was like, where do I fit in here? And I think part of me coming to New York was this feeling that you can really be anything here and nobody even looks,
Right.
So yeah, there's that What is New York Instagram page that's
right.
all the weird oddities of New York. And I feel like that was like, oh, I'm a weird oddity, so I belong here.
Right. You can blend right in with everybody and no one's going to look twice at you, right?
Exactly. So I grew up with this Western upbringing. So of course, I would go, Western and Middle Eastern. So obviously the next step after 12th grade was college in the US. That was not and I already had, my sisters are older than I am, and they were already here. So it was in DC, and that's part of why GW happened, was because I'd be around them, like moving half a world away at 17. At least there were people I knew around. So
had a little bit of a parachute, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of how I ended up in the States. Is it was kind of just that's what you do. You go to school in the West, and whether I went back to use that degree at home or stayed here, I decided my family was here, my sister, so it was kind of like, all right, well, this is what we all do.
Right. Interesting. So you were groomed to get over here, and then you're here. And let's get back
don't say that. Republicans are going to jump all over that.
It's funny. I haven't spoken anything about any kind of politics at all on this stuff, because I pretty much avoid it, because it's a no-win situation. And but if someone else wants to talk about it, I'm all for it. We can discuss anything you want to discuss here. This is all about you and not me. So this is what this show is about. Yeah. But you get here, and obviously you are thriving, and you are continuing to grow and expand yourself. And then you meet your business partner. What was the big influence behind you guys going, okay, let's start our own business? Because if you go to your webpage, feather-creative.com, the work is outstanding, people. outstanding. Like, it's beautiful. Everything that I looked at, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a better editor. I think I want to be a better photographer. I want to be a better editor at this point. But it's amazing.
It's very heartfelt to hear that it inspires you. That's what we want to do, is inspire. So
it's amazing. Like, I want to get everything as right and correct in camera as I can. So when it comes to post, I'm not there for hours doing it, but the work that you guys have put out looks fantastic. So how did you get to that point? Like, you pick up a camera and you fall in love with photography, and then you're like, wait a minute, there's really good opportunity in this post world that we can maybe touch more people. Like, how does that come about?
Sure. Okay, so I moved here to go to Pratt to learn more about photography, right? My major was in print journalism, and my minor was in art. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll want to write about art. Maybe I'll want to be an art critic or something. So let me learn more and get a master's in
well, you could write you could write a book about your life as it is, but just maybe that's another topic. But go ahead.
That's another topic, sure.
Yes.
And so what was I saying? So also, I'm going to be honest too. I was waiting for my green card. It hadn't come through yet. I had applied and waiting for it. And to stay in the country, I would have had to either go to school or find a specific job called OPT. It's called optional practical training, and they give you a year or two after, where you can like get a paid internship or something somewhere. But I didn't really want to do that as a journalist. So I decided that, maybe it is a good point to get a master's degree and wait here anyway, since my green card will come soon, and learn more about art in a more theoretical way as well, because a master's degree will give you that. And, that'll also connect me to the art world more. And so I came to Pratt and met Lynn. And the funny thing is, our work was exactly the same. Not pre-Pratt, but while we were at Pratt, we ended up like, our sensibilities were completely the same. I think I say that in my bio on my website, is that I just like, she ended up doing her thesis project on unmarried women in their 30s. And there are these just beautiful portraits of women in their spaces. And I ended up doing a project about people with who struggle with depression. And it was, again, people in their spaces. And it's just funny because they even look the same. Natural lighting, shallow depth of field. And so, but you don't think about this at the time, right? This was like 2003, 4. And then I'm about to graduate from grad school, and I get my green card at that point. So timing is perfect. And I'm like, all right, well, I have a lot of student loans that I have to pay off. So I just applied to every job I could on NYFA. I don't remember what the art job websites were back then. Monster, probably not Monster, but anyway. And I would apply to something like archivist. And because I did take my practice from the darkroom into the digital darkroom, because at Pratt, it was, even as a graduate student, you got your own darkroom. You could share it with one or two other people. And the timing never worked out. And I'm also a homebody. So I was like, well, I don't want to spend hours alone at night in a darkroom, although I love the darkroom. I was like, I'm just going to, do it on Photoshop, scan it and do it on Photoshop. And that's still my method. I still shoot film and I still scan the images. And I was always more technically inclined and always more like I started playing with Photoshop. I think my dad brought me, I don't know, the first version, maybe not the first version, but at least in 1994, I had
one of the early versions. Yeah.
I was playing with it because I'd like to do, collages and stuff on the computer. And so I was always technically inclined. Me and my dad would build computers together because he was geeky like that, even though he's a doctor. And
that's
so
one and the same. Who are you trying to kid? Geeks, doctors, come on. They got to be brilliant people to do it.
Yeah. Yes. He was a brilliant man, and a big inspiration of mine. But yeah, so I ended up working at the digital lab as a graduate assistant, like a what's it called? Like work study type position. Okay. And so that was on my resume that I was the digital assistant at the digital lab. So every time I would apply to a job like archivist or gallery assistant, I would get sent to the digital department or the retouching department. And they would say, oh, you would be a better fit for here. And the money was better by a lot.
Wow, good.
So I was like, okay. And I ended up then only applying to like entry-level retouching jobs, and luckily got my first job was at Fox Studios, and that was a major retouching house at the time. I mean, if you say that to anybody in the fashion world, they would know. And I kind of thrived there, but I burnt out and ended up just kind of moving to wanting to be freelance, and freelanced at a couple of other studios, and that was kind of my path in retouching. And Lynn went on her own path too in retouching, and ended up working her job when we decided to talk about like starting a business was at a photo art printing place. So she had that photo printing background, and I had the like more commercial retouching background. But we would always, like a few of us would always get together for dinner every now and then and just talk and, you know, bitch about our jobs and our landlords and, you know, just normal New York stuff. And one of my really good friends was my ex-boyfriend's roommate. She's a wonderful fashion photographer. And we were sitting watching TV one day, and she comes home in tears that she was working with a retoucher, and that person was just not doing what she wanted, and she didn't know how to switch. It was at that time where people were switching from film to digital, and she didn't know how to translate her work, the look of film, to her digital work, and this person wasn't understanding it, and she was really like crying because she had to get her portfolio to her agent. And even though I was busy and working really, really long hours, I felt bad. And I was like, look, I'll just do this one portfolio thing for you, and that's all I can do. And it ended up being a wonderful relationship. And she introduced me to her agent, who wanted to swing me more work. And that was kind of me and Lynn getting together, her talking about her and her husband wanting to start potentially an art printing studio somewhere, and me being like, well, I have the opportunity to do this. Will you do it with me? And this was just over dinner, casually, nothing like.
That's how it works. That's how it happens.
And honestly, we were just like, oh, we'll use it. Like we'll use it as this way to like, okay, well, I want to go on an art residency for 3 months. You'll hold down the fort with the jobs coming in, and vice versa. Like, we did not imagine this would be a business, but it would just be kind of a way to fund our own art practice. And
so awesome.
We got together. We did this really seriously. We printed out like a 50-page business plan from the Small Business Administration website and filled it out on our own, came together, lined up our answers, made sure that we had the same vision. We already knew that aesthetically we're pretty aligned, right? And the funny thing is, a design house will send us 10 logos and we'll pick the same one. Not even like we'll have come together and circled the same one. It's at this point, we've been married 11 years, so it's not surprising. But back then it was just like, oh, okay, we both like the name Feather Creative. So cool. We picked the same things.
Unbelievable.
And so it felt like it would be a solid partnership because we wanted the same things. We were both good people, and we were aesthetically aligned. And so we did it. We incorporated and in March 2011, and very quickly we were like, all right, we'll do this part-time in the evenings while juggling our full-time job. And then very quickly in December, we found a space in Union Square, 1,000 square foot, no, not even 320 square foot space for $1,000 a month. And so we could run out at lunch because our clients would want to see rounds in the middle of the day or have correspondence. And I was trying to sneak it like behind my monitor when people weren't around, walking around, I was trying to sneak the work in, and I was like, I can't do this. So we got a studio so we could at least like just run out at lunch and do whatever we need to do, thinking we wouldn't be there that often. And then in December, we got that in December. January, I quit my job because someone just needed to be there full time. And I told her, Lynn, there's no pressure for you to quit your job if you need, the income coming in. I have some savings. And 2 weeks later, she had to quit her job.
Wow.
And then 6 months later, we had to hire an intern. And then 6 months after that, we had to hire someone because I was going on vacation. So we hired someone just to fill in those 2 weeks as a freelancer. And then we're like, actually, can you stay another 2 weeks? Actually, can you stay another 2 weeks? And then she became full-time for 8 years. So
that's amazing. So I know it's important for you that it's a woman-owned business, right? Were you at that time solely looking for women to come in to work with you, or was it at that point like we're a women-owned business, but we're going to hire everybody at this point?
Yeah, we're going to hire everybody, but the fact that we were women-owned, and part of the business writing the business plan is it asks you what sets you apart from all, like what is the market and what sets you apart from everybody else, right? And at the time, we felt like, one, we were photographers ourselves, and we were fine art photographers, and that's kind of rare as far as business owners, right? Of post houses. And two, we're women, and that's also kind of rare in a lot of techie kind of geeky fields. So we were like, well, how does that differentiate us? And in one way, it differentiates us as leaders. I think women as leaders are more compassionate. They like to work collaboratively, and our studio is like that. So for our employees, we have a very less corporate, more, I'm not going to say family because that makes it such a cliche sounding, but we care about our employees.
I always tell people, if anyone ever tells you we treat you like family here at this business, you should leave, because it's always garbage. And if they tell you that, they shouldn't have to tell you that. It should just happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
don't treat everyone like that.
Right. We don't, but we live it. We do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we consider everybody a person before they are a worker, So anyway, so leading with compassion and collaboration. And also we felt like as women, we would bring a different perspective to retouching and as artists as well. I find that the best retouchers are artists because they have studied the human form and they know what should and shouldn't happen when you're manipulating, well, anything, not just the human form, when you're putting in an extension or background that shouldn't have been there in the first place. You kind of have to understand perspective and how focus falls off and all that. And so if you haven't really learned that, or even just color theory,
well, it's a total art. I mean, let's face it, editing is an art, and everyone has their own different styles to it, which is why when I looked at the webpage, I'm like, it looks amazing. Like it's so good and clean, and it doesn't look, like a filter that they like to run on Instagram where everything is just so blasted terrible, but people love it, and I don't understand that.
Yeah.
So
well,
weird.
I mean, we approach our work, and we have two, I would say, principles. one is we approach the image as a photograph. Like, this is a photograph, and how can we make this photograph as best an image as it can be, right? How can we bring out the magic of photography like you do in the dark room? Because we're technically in a digital dark room, but it's the same principles. We're burning and dodging. We're working on exposure. We're, color correcting. And of course, there's other crazy things we do, but we want the image to sing, and we don't want you to think it was retouched. We want your eye to be like, oh, that came out of the camera that way. So our focus is on the art of photography and the craft of it. And the other focus, what I was trying to get into, is as women, we appreciate women's bodies, and we appreciate the beauty of everything, just people. And we wanted to honor that and retouch people with a light touch. We didn't want to remove things that made people themselves, because when you turn it back around to photography, what makes it a better image? Does slimming this model 2 sizes really affect the quality and magic of the whole picture? No, I don't think it does. Or removing that one mole, I don't think it does. I think shooting it beautifully, making a statement or a story out of it, it's the whole concept of the image, not these little things that really, in the grand scheme of things, don't matter and are harmful. So we came about it with that approach, that our first round will always be light-handed in body manipulation and body retouching. And we make a distinction between permanent marks and impermanent marks. So basically, permanent marks would be your mole, a scar. An impermanent mark would be like a sock line because you've been wearing socks for too long, or like your makeup smudged, or a zit.
I love this. I tell people when I'm doing photos, they're like, can you get rid of this and this? And I'm like, if it's supposed to be there, I'm not touching it. Meaning if it's a mole, I'm going to leave it. If it's a zit, we'll clean that up.
Yeah, because tomorrow the zit will be gone. You just happen to come here today and you have a zit on your face.
Right.
That's not permanent.
There is nothing wrong with the beauty marks that make us all special. And I think those should stay. And I have a hard time. I was editing photos one day, and Julia, my wife, was like, why don't you do that for my photos? And I tell her, you're beautiful to me as you are. I'm not going to change that. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not messing with you. So quit asking.
Yeah.
So I love that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's hard. I get approached at parties and people are like, oh, can you make me look beautiful? And I'm like, you're already beautiful though.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't want to. No, that's not what my job is.
I can make you look beautiful. Click. There you are.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I had to shoot our staff photos at work the other day, and they're like, make me look pretty and do this. And I'm like, I don't have to do anything, people. Like, it's
good lighting.
You say.
No principles of photography. Know how to take a good picture. That's it.
Right. Right. Sarah once told me, because I had this conversation with her before about how I go through these stages of insecurity with my photography. And she's like, Craig, you don't take a bad photo. And I'm like, and that pops into my head every time I start to have some issues with it. And I'm like, thanks, Baron. I appreciate that immensely, because to me, it's how we see the world, right? When you take that picture, that's your vision of it, and you're sharing it with these people. And it's something special to me, at least.
Sure. I mean, that's a good teacher.
Right. I think so. Exactly. So what's going on with Feather Creative now, and what are the next steps for the company, and what are the next steps for you as well?
So we have grown to be 15, 16 people at this point. We're growing a presence in LA, and we are also growing into video. So that's gonna.
Can you grow a presence in Charlotte, North Carolina? Cheers.
Maybe. Is there a market?
You know what?
Do the market research.
All right, I'll take a look.
Show me numbers. And we're just launching video now. So we just got we're just starting to push for a video department. So motion editing, retouching, color, grading. So yeah, it's really exciting. I can't believe we've grown so much. 3 years ago, we were shut down for 6 months and we had no work coming in. And everyone was like, yeah, but you can do your work at home. And I was like, yeah, but my clients can't do their work at home. They have to shoot on giant sets where people have to get together. So there was no work. So we did have a few clients who, still life clients who sent their products to the photographer's home and they shot there and then we'd get the photos, and a couple of clients who repurposed old photography and we kind of crazy manipulated it to look from summer to Christmas, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, some crazy work, but you know, it wasn't enough to keep a whole staff on. But we worked really hard to keep our families together, our teams together, because really you're only as good as your team, and you want to keep your team happy. And we fought to keep them all. We didn't lose any jobs. We actually made more. And yeah, we're growing like gangbusters. And I think that's because we really cared about the team and keeping them together. So yeah.
I love it. That is amazing. And on a personal level, what's next for you? Where do you think you're going? Where are you going?
Me? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have to, I want to live on an island in the Caribbean. I don't know. Visit Sarah Barron with you.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good idea.
Hear that, Sarah?
That's right. We're coming, Sarah. That's it. You have no choice. That would be awesome. No, I would love it. I would love that. Well, listen, I know you are busy, and I know it's early on a Saturday, and there's always something you can do. So I will let you get out of here. I, again, so appreciative of your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks.
I've been waiting to do this one for quite some time because I know how incredible you are, and I love to hear about your success and your growth and how it all came to be. It's just so neat. Please make sure you guys go to feather-creative.com and take a look at their work. It's outstanding. I love it.
You can follow us on Instagram too, Feather Creative.
That's right. Have I followed you on Instagram? I'm going to. If I haven't, I think I have, but we'll see. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out in just a minute. So if you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe there as well. Salma, thank you again so much for your time today. I wish you nothing but the best. And obviously, we will be chatting soon. And as soon as Julia and I get up to New York, we're going to stop in and see you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're always welcome.
Absolutely. We will be there. So enjoy the rest of your day. You guys take care. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Craig.